Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Think Tank Thursday. I'm Denise Killian with Trainertainment, and I am thrilled that you're here with us. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors for 2025. We appreciate their support, which helps us bring you Think Tank Thursday each and every week. Well, on Thursdays, Trainertainment likes to take a break from the doing and spend just a little bit of time thinking. And this week, we're going to talk about training. Training is so vital for the success of your company and the success of your staff. And we're going to focus on that not just today, but all month. And to talk about training and some unique ideas of creating a culture of consistent training, we reached out to Clint Novak with A&A Global. So let's get started and hear what Clint has to say. Clint, it is wonderful to have you back for Think Tank Thursday. How you doing?
I am excited. How are you?
Wonderful. I always
Awesome.
love getting to talk with you and learning new things about your experience and how you help share that with others. And today we're going to talk training,
All
which
right.
is something that is essential but often neglected. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at A&A Global.
Sure. I'm the business development manager at A&A Global. My job is to go around to family entertainment centers. Last year, I visited 150 different centers. I'm always on the road traveling, and I want to visit those centers and give them all of the advice that's in here to help them be a better facility, help them make money, help them save money, whatever it is I can do to help them grow. That's my job. So. Previously, I was the general manager of Funland of Fredericksburg. I was there for 8 years, and part of that and A&A Global, I have a masterminds group where I talk to facilities on a monthly basis, and we try to solve the world's problems. So, and when I say the world's problems, I mean FEC problems, not the actual world problems. So,
Excellent. Okay, so in solving problems, I'm just going to ask you flat out, how many of the world's problems would be solved if we had better training?
there's a lot of things that can be solved with better training and development, for sure. And when I started at Funland of Fredericksburg, I noticed that that was one of the biggest improvements that we could make is just by fixing the training and development that we were putting our staff through. Um, when I first started, and this was 8, 9, 10 years ago, the staff would be hired on Monday, orientation on Wednesday, and they're operating rides on Friday. They were really just thrown into it. There was not a lot of structure to it. Big training groups, so 10 people going through. They weren't retaining the knowledge. And then on Saturday, half of them would quit. And then we'd have to hire another 10 because it was like, oh my God, everybody quit because they were so overwhelmed and so underprepared for what a Saturday is at a family entertainment center that they couldn't handle it. And I've seen as I go around, and this was not in my 150 locations I went to, but as a guest, I once went to a go-kart facility and they have 6 or 8 go-kart tracks, a few rides and attractions. And I walked in to the guest relations ticket booth area, and there was a person in front of me, and that person was there because it was their first day on the job. And they said, "Oh, today's my first day." They literally handed them a shirt and a whistle and said, "Go to track number 5. So and so is going to train you." And I was like, wow, okay. Later that day, that person was running a go-kart track by themselves. And I was like, I don't think they have the right tools and resources to be in that position yet. As a guest, just watching
Probably
that.
not.
No. And so, it is really important to make sure that you are giving your staff the tools necessary to be as successful as they can be in the role that they have. And I think that starts right when you're hiring them and going into that training and development.
When we talk about the hiring process, you had a very interesting way of dealing with the fact that a lot of times people will be there for maybe 6 months or 3 months or 9 months or be seasonal and come and go with, oh, I'm home from college for 2 weeks. I need a job, or I'm home for the summer, and have that sort of seasonal feel to the positions and the staffing. So you had a very unique strategy to keep consistency with guest services all the way through by doing weekly hiring.
Yeah, so Funland of Fredericksburg has 18 rides and attractions. It's a big facility, 7 acres. Um, and we had basically we broke everything down in departments. So we had the indoor rides and attractions. There was 8 of those. Outdoor rides and attractions. There was 8 of those. Or excuse me, 9 and 9. There was a parties department, cafe, and maintenance. Maintenance, that was a specialty hire. That's a whole nother Think Tank Thursday. How do you hire game techs and go-kart mechanics? Whole nother thing. But to hire those 16-year-olds that are just starting first job, they're going to be your front of the line workers running rides and attractions. Really, we hired every Monday. And that starts just before spring break, like 2 weeks before spring break, really ramps up, or maybe even 3 weeks before spring break, you start that every single Monday hiring. And there was a process. And since we did it every week, it was just built into our schedule. So Monday we hired 5 o'clock. People could show up. They would go through the interview process. We would we'd have all of our managers, supervisors there. It was just walk in, we would hire them on the spot. We would get their paperwork through, and then Wednesday was orientation. 4 hours. They would come in. They would do a scavenger hunt to learn the facility a little bit. We could see how they interact with others. They would go through all the policies and procedures that you have to know, how to call out, what to do if you're sick, all of those things, how many attendance points you get, the important things that you need to know when going into a new job. And then Thursday and Friday was dedicated to training. We wanted to make sure that they were trained and ready to go. And again, it's a small training group, so we're looking at like maybe 5 people per group or less. Usually it's one-on-one training, so it's like a supervisor's with them or a training coach, somebody who's been promoted into a position where they are allowed to train others. Um, then they're training them on that rider attraction. There's a checklist that they're going through. They do one rider attraction at a time, no more than 2 or 3 rides because they're not going to retain all of that knowledge. So you check them off, you go through those 3 rides, you get them comfortable. And then Saturday and Sunday is going to be about following and shadowing. So they're going to shadow a good employee and they're going to watch them operate the ride and attraction. And hopefully by Sunday, maybe they're operating the ride or attraction with that person overseeing their operations to make sure that they're doing it correctly. But that also doesn't just throw them into the fire. Because the big issue we had was we were not giving them we were giving them very quick training, throwing them in on a Saturday. Saturday, they're overwhelmed and they just walk out. So we didn't want that. We wanted to give them all of the proper procedures to make it through the weekend. And then during the next week, Monday through Friday, they might be scheduled 1 or 2 shifts. They'll come in, do the shift. They're going to be able to operate the ride on their own as long as they were checked off on Sunday. So there's a checklist. Again, once the training is on Thursday, Friday, there's a checklist for that. Then there's a recheck to make sure that they retained all of that knowledge. How tall do you have to be to ride this ride? What do you do to stop the ride in an emergency? What do you do in this scenario? So there's all these different things that you have listed that they have to go through. And once they can do a practical and are signed off, then they can operate the ride on their own, but only that ride. They can't go to other rides and operate those. They are allowed to operate the ride they're signed off on. They do that Monday through Friday. And then Saturday, when it's crazy, they're ready for it. They have the ability now to operate that attraction because they have a week's worth of experience to back them up.
So, one of the things that I love that you're talking about is essentially you tell them what they need to do, you show them what they need to do, and then you watch them doing what they need to do.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's important because, again, you're just reiterating the fact that they're going to retain that knowledge. And, once you know how to, if you've ever operated a ride or attraction, once you've done it so many times, it's very repetitive. Once you've done it, it sticks in your mind. So we wouldn't have to retrain or retool them unless there was a safety infraction. If there's something that they did incorrectly that caused them to get a safety violation, as long as it wasn't a severe one, they would then have to be retrained on that ride or attraction. Or if like a certain amount of time lapsed between them operating the ride on a regular basis. So let's say they go off to college, they come back, then there's going to be they don't have to go through the training necessarily, but they will have to go through that practical just to show that they retain the knowledge.
So, Clint, one of the things that I think people might miss if they say, "Oh, we've got training, yay," but that training is chock full of a lot of assumptions, of
Hmm.
assuming that people know things. And especially when we're talking about folks that maybe this is their first job, there's a lot of things that they have no idea about. And quite frankly, assuming that somebody knows how to mop a floor,
I was just going to use that example. So you used it. I was like, if
right?
you've ever operated a facility and then you asked a 16-year-old to go mop the floor and then you watch them do it for the first time, you're like, nope, I'm going to have to show them how to do that. So
Right.
you're,
Like
you're
they
100% right. Yep.
they don't know.
Hmm.
I remember one time I had to explain what an actual physical phone was,
Yeah.
you know, because they had never seen one before. And so it's that recognition of, oh, okay, we really have to. I think good training starts with assume that the person you're training knows nothing.
Yes, 100%. And this goes into the more broader training. Obviously, there's rides and attraction training, there's guest service training, cafe training, how to make a pizza, how to do birthday parties. But that general training that you're talking about is, again, important. And that's going to be your leadership. Your leads and supervisors are going to be the ones who are going to be doing that work because it's going to come up in just natural performance. How do you pick up around the park? How do you wipe down the games from the smudges? The my favorite is when you have a claw game. There's going to be a smudge at head height right here, and that's where people put their head against the glass to look into the machine. So how do you get rid of the smudges? What tools do you use? You can't just use a rag because a rag is going to leave residue on the glass. You have to use paper towels or something that's going to be lint free on the glass because otherwise it's not going to be cleaned properly. When you're mopping, you have to have clean mop bucket water. How do you get the mop bucket water? Where is the closet? How do you do that? Sweeping the floors, mopping the floors, vacuuming the floors, just keeping the facility clean is a whole training in itself. So
Absolutely. And with that, it's the show them, tell them, show them, watch them.
yeah, yeah, and good
And
leadership is going to be doing it with them. So I as a lead or supervisor or manager or general manager would never ask my employees to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself.
and that watching them, and teaching, they tell teachers, I do it, we do it, they do it. Right. So it's that same, I'm going to show you what it looks like. Because quite frankly, if you say keep the front desk clean, that means something very different, even to you and me.
Hmm.
Right. So you got to show them this is how you clean. This is what you do. This is what clean looks like. Okay. Now let's do this together. Okay. Now I'm going to watch you. If you don't watch and consistently make sure that they're getting it where it needs to be and encouraging them and maybe re-showing them, then you've wasted your time training in the first
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
Okay.
I also want to point out that it is important for FECs to keep a record of the training that you're going through. So you want to make sure whether it's digital or paper that people are signing off on it, that you're keeping that, because that's going to be important later on down the road if something were to happen, to make sure that you have documentation for your insurance to say, no, this person had this training, this person signed off on this, and it shows all of the steps. Did they know how tall you had to be to ride this ride? Did they know that the emergency stop button is this button? Did they know, it's checking off all of those things. And that goes for just your daily checklist too. If you're doing inspections on your rides and attractions, you should have some type of record for that, whether it's paper or digital.
And that accountability is a big part of training, because if you don't hold training is supposed to be about showing people how to do it, setting them up to succeed, but it's also training them to the level of expectation that you have. And if we're not following through on a regular, consistent basis of pointing out when we meet or exceed that level of expectation, or certainly when we don't meet it, then we're wasting our time. And that creates a culture of it doesn't matter. I don't really have to do it. Right.
And bad employees are going to make good employees go away. So, if you have an employee, let's say, an employee that calls out for their shift, you have a good employee who now has to do a double to make sure that that shift is being taken care of. And then the good employee is eventually going to say, you know what, I'm sick of doing doubles because Timmy won't show up for his shift. And then they're going to leave. And then you're stuck with a bad employee that doesn't show up for their shift. So, you really have to make sure that you're always watching, always looking at it. If you have an attendance policy, follow it. It's the most important thing you can do. Even if you need that employee to get through that day, they're not that important to your overall culture. So it's one of those things where you have to make the tough decision and say, okay, Timmy didn't show up for his shift today. He now has the attendance points necessary to terminate his position, but we're 2 weeks away from the summer being over, so maybe we should just wait 2 weeks. That 2 weeks might be too late. They're going to push out other employees. So that's when you have to say, you know what, we're going to make it work. I've got a good staff. I'm going to be there. I'm going to fill in whatever it is to make it happen. And then you have to let Timmy know that he's hit his attendance points and that he is no longer, working there. And again, documentation is key. Make sure that you document all of the attendance points, all of the stuff, so that if there's anything that comes up with it, you have a clear documentation of everything that happened to lead to that position. The position you're in.
Absolutely. So, clear plan, check off points, have those mentorships, have those shadowings, have levels of documentation that we're doing it, they've learned it, we've watched them do it, they've signed off that they're good to go, we've signed off that they're good to go, and consistently checking up on that throughout the time that they're there.
Put a system together. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that process is really, really key. And the training never actually ends. You can't just say, well, I told him that one time and I handed him this handbook and I don't see what the problem is. That's not how that goes, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that consistency, not just when we're hiring them and bringing them on, but that we're creating that culture of training throughout the time that they're with us.
Yep. Yep. And you touched on another, just consistency in general, making sure that you're doing it the same way every time. And you want to make sure that people are doing it that way, that they don't find shortcuts or whatever it is to get around it and then start doing it less, because then that becomes the new way and you don't want that. And again, everything's fluid. So go back, change things if needed. Any training procedure can be modified and take the input of your training staff. They're going to be the ones who are doing it every day. So they're going to be the ones who know maybe this is a way we should do it that'll be more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Clint, it is time for the Think Tank question.
Okay.
And I know that we talked a little bit about you like to have audiobooks. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to ask you, what's your favorite, like kind of most recent, this really struck me from a learning perspective audiobook?
Okay. Well, I don't have any recent ones that pop up, but one that has definitely structured a lot of my leadership skills was going to be Love Works by Joel Manby. He used to be the CEO of Hershen Entertainment. Hershen obviously has a great environment to work in, a great culture to be a part of. And the book was all about how that culture builds their employees up. And I really enjoy it. There's things that he talked about in there that I was like, why am I not doing that? And then started doing that, just like handwritten notes to employees, and even beyond employees, like spouses of employees. If my AGM ended up working a crazy work week, sending his wife something that says thank you for letting my AGM give up so much of his time away from you guys to do this, and maybe even a gift card in there or something.
Yeah. And those little things mean so much. So anytime that you can, that just a handwritten note or hey, listen, I saw you doing this and I loved it. It meets our core values. It's so much of who we are. And I appreciate that you did this. Here's, your next lunch is on me, something.
Yeah.
Any kind of an acknowledgement, I think, is such an important thing to do as a leader. So that's fantastic. That's very good. Very good. Clint, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to A&AGlobal.com. Just type in Clint Novak in the search bar, or they can email me at it needs to be cnovak at AAglobal.com. So cnovak at AAglobal.com.
Wonderful. Well, if you have any questions out there about training or a training process, Clint is the guy to talk to. And I know you're always happy to share your knowledge. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today on ThinkTank Thursday.
My pleasure. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Clint. And I love your approach of having that weekly hiring throughout the year so that every week you're bringing on 3, 4, 5 new people. And that creates a culture of training. That creates a culture of learning and sharing and mentorship. And that's consistent all the way through the year. That's a great practice. And I'd love to see some people use that and see what successes that they can get from that idea. So thanks, Clint. Always appreciate your input. I'd also like to thank our 2025 digital sponsors. Without them, we couldn't do what we do, which is bring you ThinkTank Thursday each and every week. So thank you to our sponsors. If you have a Think Tank idea or if you want to be a guest, just reach out. I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at denise@trainertainment.net. And thank you for tuning in today. We appreciate your time and your attention and hope that you got a little bit of idea or something that you can put into practice with your team. Because remember that the journey to success is all about growth. And here at Trainertainment, we're committed to helping you and your company thrive. You can visit trainertainment.net to learn how we can support your growth journey for yourself, for your team, and your business by setting up a free growth call with one of our coaches. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for the extraordinary.
Playthrough is an online scoring system for mini golf courses. Simply post a QR code near the first hole. Golfers scan it with any mobile phone, add their golfers, and start entering scores. They can easily view their group leaderboard or the course leaderboards. Playthrough also includes features like hole sponsor logos and hole transition ads to help grow your business. Visit playthroughmini.com to see what else Playthrough can do.